Everybody, welcome. This is the Collegiate Esports Talk Show, and today we have an awesome guest that I'm gonna just let introduce himself.
So it's great to be here, mate. My name is Tom. For everyone that doesn't know, Tom Screech. Work over at CSL Esports. Originally from England, obviously with this accent, but I living over in Denver now in the US, which is great.
We were talking before this call that sponsorships and partnerships are the same thing, and I think it's
Yeah,
interesting because that anecdote you just shared is like exactly that. It's like making a partnership with your sponsors.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. Partnerships, as much as it boils down to, is basically just making friends.
yeah,
It's making friends in various different ways, whether it's reaching out through cold email, through cold calling, meeting them at an event. You're really just trying to find out kind of what they want and what they need to be fixed. So if you reach out to someone via email, you're looking to find out what issues are their business facing right now. Have they just received a massive bunch of funding? Are they looking to get into the collegiate scene? Who's their main audience? You're looking to find out all that information, and then with that, you can build a proposal that hits every single one of their targets.
CSL has a lot of sponsorships and partnerships. NACE Star League, I'm always astonished at how many partnerships and sponsorships have been sold or whatever dealings happening behind the scenes. And because of that, I think you bring a unique perspective as well as like a successful one too. It's like, yes, I could have. I mean, I've sold a mouse pad sponsorship at my last school for $1,000, but you guys have like some of the biggest names who are endemic to esports involved, plus more.
Yeah,
Which is really exciting.
yeah. It's been a lot of fun. The AMD deal we did was an absolute dream to work on. That was one of my kind of flagship deals I did with the company, and to work with AMD and CSL, and just to see kind of two of the biggest people in esports right now in the collegiate space was amazing. AMD are pushing a lot right now, and for have them to come on board with us was brilliant. But NACE Star League, our size and our ability when it comes to partners and sponsors is amazing to see. And it's amazing to bring these people in and introduce them to the world. And I've taken people down to the local host venues. There's one down here in Denver, which Nerd Street were gracious enough to let me tour around and go backstage and take pins and leaflets and things like that. So that was always fun. And introducing endemics and non-endemics into collegiate esports is brilliant.
The people who tune in are high school and college coaches. And a lot of us aren't well funded, or at least not funded to the level that we want to be funded. So a lot of us, or a lot of people in the space, have pushed us towards the idea of sponsorships and partnerships. But most of us have no idea how to start, and most of us might hate sales, or the idea of sales. So how do we get started? And what is like your biggest piece of advice for someone who's looking at this? It's a
great question. It's a great question, because the truth is in every industry I've worked in, is there's someone that goes, I don't really like sales, but they're amazing at it. And I kind of fit into that category of someone who doesn't particularly enjoy sales, but the second I get an email back and the second that I get that reply, it's like adrenaline straight to my blood. So I end up, I live and breathe sales at the end of the day. I love it. In this industry, running programs where it's them and maybe one other person, or it's them and two students who have offered to stay behind and help out and run socials, especially on the the smaller high school side of things. And starting out is definitely the hardest step. Which I'm sorry to say to some people who think they were hoping for an easy answer, but getting into it is hard. But once you've got going and once you've set up a system that works for yourself, it's plain sailing, and you can repeat the steps. You know what to do, and eventually it will work. So the first thing I always say when anyone asks me, how do I get started in partnerships? How do I get started in sponsorships? Is do an asset audit. Know exactly what you have available to sell to you. So do you have a social media account? If so, how many followers are you getting? If so, what's your engagement like? If you've got the time, you can look at your engagement compared to bigger organizations. So then you get that key percentage rate. So it doesn't really matter, I'm going to use Maryville, have a lot of followers, they get X amount of likes. I have this amount of followers and I get this amount of likes. Comparatively, the percentages could be quite similar, which would show that there is quite a lot of interest regardless of the amount of follower numbers you have. After that, once you've got your list of assets, of course, you've got things like broadcast as well. That's a whole nother bucket. But once you've got your list of assets, you really want to first assess the partnership you have with your school. A great tweet from Sergio at Maryland went out the other day talking about knowing exactly what your school want and what they're looking for. But really knowing what your school wants, you can really align that in your sales strategy. So you're selling the things that they're going to want to pick up right away. The key metric, it's your engagement rate that really people will want to look at.
How important do you think? I mean, how important do you think those metrics are for a local high school? I mean, I don't know.
Local high schools are another basket because you're not going to get the thousands of followings that some of the bigger colleges do. When you don't get that engagement rate, that is when you can kind of switch tactics. So you've got something that I've kind of been calling awareness versus action. So action is really on the engagement side. That's, how many people will you get to like this? How many people do you think maybe can buy this? If you look at the awareness side of things, you're looking at, how many people will this make an impact on? So, for example, if a company says, right, we're going to sponsor you for keyboards this year, but we want you to sell 15 keyboards to students, because if not, that sponsor's not going to want to come back.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, there's an option to flip it to say, hey, I can't sell you 15 keyboards, but what I can do is promise that you're making a difference and be that difference maker and get that awareness and kind of say to these people, I'm not going to get you sales, but you're going to be impacting the lives of esports in this high school. You're going to be making a difference. You're going to allow these kids to play the games, to go on to college and maybe go to pro, become an analyst, whatever they want to do. You're kind of giving them that ability to do that. And in that vein, that then changes the sponsors from these, huge worldwide companies to looking really locally, right? So if you've got a pizza shop that's just down the road from the school that the students walk past every day on their way home or on the way to the bus, you've got someone right there that you could possibly bring in for a small amount, for $1,000, $500, whatever they can afford, to help out the school's program. Maybe you create a small tournament to increase registration for your high school. Well, you can try and bring in a local pizza shop to supply pizzas, or give $1,000 to help bring in a TO. Look at things like, where did the parents work the most? If they're at garages, or maybe they're working for the local council or wherever they're doing that. If you can tie in that relationship with the client and say, hey, look, your kid playing at the school, there's a tournament going, we'd love for your company to be able to chuck $100 towards the prize pool, which will help us get more signups. Things like that can really be easy to action quick because it's local community. I mean, everyone loves a local community in the States. It's kind of beautiful.
No, I can't say enough about local partnerships. Everybody wants to have G Fuel as their sponsor, but sorry to break it to you, they're not sending you stuff.
Exactly. You look at G Fuel, and 1,000 schools are going to be emailing G Fuel, but maybe look at the G Fuel alternative that was founded 2 cities over from you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You use the term partnerships, which I think is a better way of looking at it. Could you speak a little bit to how you kind of keep a sponsor or partner once they're signed on? Like, what are some of your, I don't know if necessarily secret sauces, but like, what's your advice on some of that?
The biggest tip I can give you is honesty, and then also communication. If you're honest from the get-go with what you're able to do, the sponsor / partner is going to want to stick around because they believe in you, right? They believe in the mission you've got. So honesty is number one. Communication is number two. You have to keep talking to them. You cannot sign them and then drop them for the rest of the season and then send them an email a week before the season closes and say, oh, hey, do you guys want to come back for next year? Think about what you can do to keep the information flow up. Be aware of the KPIs. What is the partner looking for, and give them a monthly update. Hey, I know you said we're looking for 15 keyboards. This month we're up to 5. Next month, these are our plans to bring in another 5. And then before the end of the season, here's what we're hoping to do before 15. And then even if you don't hit the target, you can show them to say, look, we tried our best. We gave you all we had. This is everything we put on the table. Let's work at it again next year. Maybe go for 20 keyboards. and let's go for it again next year. Increase the sponsorship, and then increase the revenue for your school.
Even from like a nonprofit state high school league standpoint, like they first, I know the Michigan folks started by trying to like get with Microsoft and get a sponsorship, and they just got nothing. But then they found some like local electronics supplier who like bought their top sponsorship for like 10 grand a year, and that I had never heard of them. But those types of local companies want to make an impact in their local community, and they're much more willing, I think, to kind of get behind what you're doing and support those local high schools and colleges. And
totally agree.
Yeah, my mousepad sponsorship was a local video game store. So
there we go.
I don't even know how that happened. I think I might have just reached out on Facebook and asked. But
see, that's brilliant. Is reaching out like that is exactly how you do it. You know, the second big question behind how I start is, you know, how do I reach out to people? And honestly, LinkedIn, you know, at the stage where you can't afford to invest in more sales navigator tools, LinkedIn is brilliant. Yeah. You can find anyone there to talk to and shoot them a DM. It's like, well, they've got McDonald's. We got to jump on.
Oh, that's true. Exactly. Saints Gaming has a Crunchyroll as a sponsor too.
Saints Gaming, you know,
and
Saints.
Tim Hortons. Amazing. They have Subway. Like all these, and
Subway, Tim Hortons, and you could have a great party purely just.
Yeah, I think I know what how their sponsorship strategy is. It's literally like, all right, what do I want to do on a Friday night? Let's call those companies.
And that is the ingenious thing about this industry is you have such big brands in the community that are really kind of just for the community. Yeah. It's not other communities that you could see Subway, McDonald's, Coke, and Crunchyroll all together and go, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's true.
My outreach is spent 99% of the time me sat here looking at my desk going, okay, right, I have a HyperX keyboard. I'm like, right, my water bottle. I'm like, what brand is that water bottle I use?
Yeah.
Can I reach out to them? Because, you know, if you're the one selling the target audience, then it makes things a lot easier. And I did that with Ground News, one of our sponsors for NA Star League. I've used them for like 3 years, and on a Wednesday afternoon went, I wonder if they want to sponsor collegiate esports at all.
That's so fascinating. Yeah, and I think that goes all the way down to your local coaches too. I keep using mousepad sponsorship because it's the only sponsorship I've sold. So woohoo, go me. Well, for me it was like I have this cost, and if I'm a gamer, one place I might go is the used video game store down the street. So it was a blind, a cold message through Facebook that got that started. And it was something that the owner was stoked about and how it went. So, I love local, and I love that idea of just like looking around your room and be like, what do you use? Exactly. What do your players use?
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. What headphones do our players use? You know, 4 out of 5 of our team have got HyperX headphones. Well, you know, let's shoot a message out to HyperX to see if they'd be interested in giving the last player a final headset, you know, something small like that. And in return, you get to use their logo. Another thing as well that we've seen other brands in the space do okay with is influencers from your area, right? So if you're a high school in St. Louis, for example, because we're talking about Maryville, you know, who from St. Louis is famous with some money to spare? You know,
interesting.
Take some long shots like that. You know, you've seen players like Ozell Beckham Jr. invest in esports. Yeah. Lando Norris has his own esports team. You know, these younger athletes, as they start to grow up with more cash to burn, are going to be looking for investments to make, and bringing them in. Yeah. Is amazing, not only for you but also for the community. Yeah. Lando Norris has his own esports team. You know, these younger athletes, as they start to grow up with more cash to burn, are going to be looking for investments to make, and bringing them in. Yeah. Is amazing, not only for you but also for the community.
Yeah, and I think for the coaches and directors in chat, whether at the high school or college level, we have a really cool, unique story to tell when it comes to being a nonprofit. Oftentimes, and in providing opportunities for students in esports. And I think that narrative is so important. We might not have 500,000 followers on Twitter to sell to, but we have a really engaged group of students who want an opportunity. And someone can be a part of that.
That's it, yeah.
Walk through a little bit of that, of like the mental side of how you approach those meetings. So I think a lot of us who don't know sponsorships would walk into that meeting thinking, all we're thinking is, how do I get money at the end of this conversation? So like, how does that differ from how you approach conversations?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the overarching thing always is how do I get money, because it's in my job title. So people are
Yeah.
going to know, but really looking to identify how the company is doing. So whenever I do an outreach email, I'm always saying, this is what we're up to. This is what we've done. I would love to know if this is of interest for you. That gives people an ability to just kind of say no, and then that those people are ones you have to work education on. So you kind of put them in another bucket to say, okay, I'm going to feed you information to the eventual point that you're like, all right, I've seen so much esports that I have to know what you guys are talking about with esports. The people that are interested, they're like a golden ticket.
Yeah.
You get them a meeting set up, within the following 24 hours, and you say, how's it going? How's everyone at the team? What's your team like? Has esports been something you're interested in? Excuse me. What about esports interests you? What do you already know about esports? You'd be amazed at the amount of people that when I ask, like, have you heard of NoahTheNexus League before? Or have you heard of CSL? What do you know about it? They go, yeah, my brother plays for the Rocket League team. Or, yeah, I know someone that's gone to watch the game at the university I'm at. Or yeah, my son is really into Rocket League. Everyone, for some reason, says Rocket League.
No Fortnite anymore?
League.
Okay.
No one. Ninja killed Fortnite
upon
the New Year's Eve dance. Now everyone's like, no, please don't mention Fortnite. No one talk about it.
How important is kind of making that, or finding that connection point? Like finding out that person's brother is playing CSL. Like how important is something like that?
It's super important, but it's a real thin line, right?
Yeah.
So, there's a very thin line between getting the deal done and researching your client well to ending up on Criminal Minds looking like a stalker. So you have to make sure that you're not saying things like, wow, I saw the bouquet of flowers your mother got on Facebook from her church this Sunday. That was amazing. Those pagodas. Like you don't want to say that stuff, but you can say things that are public.
Yeah.
Like, publicly on the profile, they like motor racing. Good. I love motor racing.
News stations. What about
dynamic. It? So I live in Denver, so I'm in the state of Colorado, and NBC News here love covering high school esports, and they have regular reports on how teams are doing in their little cute daily athletic debrief.
That's
so.
Cool.
You've got the opportunity with news stations now who are going to know that esports is a buzzword, and if you're in a bigger metropolitan town, obviously it will be a little easier for you because those stations will have bigger budget. But get them to come down to a tournament, get them to come down and see an open practice, get them to come down and see the first day back for the esports kids and just see how they're doing at the high school level. I think it's not been tested outside of my own knowledge in Colorado, but to get the community involved that way, I think could increase your exposure tenfold, because people are going to know now, well, my grandkid mentioned esports, or my son or daughter mentions esports. Like, I'll check the news for it. And if there's nothing there, then they may get bounced back. And kind of my theory lately is well, reach out to these people and get a reporter to write an article on your school's esports team and see where it goes. Scholastic Esports seems to be doing really well on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's kind of the main place for recruiting, for finding people to work with, for finding scrims, things like that. So, a lot of these coaches will have profile like yours. Perfect example. Brilliant profile built up. If you reached out to a journalist, you've already skipped a lot of the questions of who is this guy? Is he official? Is he trustworthy? Yeah. That an email will get blocked by. So I would always reach out to reporters on Twitter.
Another good piece of advice might be to open up your local newspaper and go look for the ads and see what companies are spending ads locally 100%. In antiquated advertising methods, or like who's running ads on your local news station, and do you have a contact to those companies, because those companies are probably spending a lot more money than what you're going to ask for to advertise, and you have an opportunity. All right, what's the next thing on your notes? What do you got?
I've got so one of the biggest things is comparisons, right? So like I said with the NBA and NFL, but collegiate esports, Scholastic Esports is in a good space because we have the pro teams doing a lot of our A/B testing for us.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
We have a lot of the pro teams that will go out and try something totally new, and it may not work. And that gives you an opportunity to see what they did wrong, but also what have they done that worked really, really well, and how can you scale that down to your level. So you might not be needing to do a watch party in Times Square, but you can do a watch party in your computer science lab, or you can do a watch party in your auditorium because they seem to be working really well. Same with jerseys, a yearly regular jersey release where you do a hype video with the students. You do like a media day, bring the kids in, get the photos taken. That works for pro teams, so it's going to eventually work down in collegiate because everyone ends up following that. It's the same back home in England with local football teams. Is they all end up copying what the pro teams do because they want to get there at some point. Twitter is probably like the best example. If your team doesn't have a Twitter, go and make one right now and start tweeting about your season, about the players, build profiles. One of the biggest things I've seen online lately is kind of the discussion around, are you working for the company, or are you really kind of a storyteller when it comes to casting? And you can definitely replicate those storylines at your own level. Reaching out to rival high schools, seeing if they've got a high team and getting a 1v1 set up and tweeting about it and getting broadcast about it. And, building those storylines will be incredibly valuable after a while. It's not an immediate impact, but it's certainly one that will be here for a long time.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my long-winded 2 bits of advice.
Well, thank you. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Find me on Twitter at KhyberTS_. I'm always happy to talk. You've got to realize that you're never really failing. You're just learning how to do things a bit better, right? So you're like, oh, I've not sent this email in 3 months. Well, now you've got to send it within a couple of weeks. So you'll set a reminder on your phone and you'll put due by dates on your spreadsheet, and you'll put things that'll help you. I call it like ADHD tax. You pay the tax to beat your ADHD. So right, maybe I need to buy something that will help me send emails better. So there's you're never failing. You're just really learning how to do it at a different level.
That's awesome. I love that. That can apply to a lot of things, but
it can.
That's awesome.
Right?
Cool. Well, thank you again. I think it's time we sign off. I need to go eat some dinner, but thank you again, Tom, for joining. This was awesome.
Absolute pleasure.
See ya.